From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the news at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Harriet Agbe.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, Governor Liel Imoke condemns moves to scuttle the president's 2015 ambition, says those against his plan to contest the presidency are pursuing selfish goals. Low turnout Mars Cross River Council polls, Nasarawa State local government election to hold on December the 14th. Women group in Nigeria challenges government on conflict resolution as the world marks International Day of Peace. And horror in Kenya as suspected terrorists storm a shopping mall, killing at least 20 people.
On business news tonight, Naira pressure remains a key concern as the Central Bank of Nigeria's MPC holds a two-day policy meeting next week.
And the sports news, winners of the men and women event of the 2013 Obudu International Mountain Race will go home with $50,000 each.
As the crisis rocking the PDP lingers and parties in the reconciliation process work on resolving the issues, the Cross River State Governor and member of the Reconciliation Committee of the party, Liel Imoke, says the grievances of the breakaway group are motivated by self-interest. Governor Imoke noted that the crisis is not in the interest of any of the sides of the divide, adding that the rift is all about the elections in 2015. The governor said this during an interview with our political correspondent, Seun Okinbaloye, in the state's capital, Calabar.
Well, I think that whatever it is that are their grievances, they should be managed within the context of our platform, the PDP. I don't think it makes sense to try to create a faction out of the PDP. I don't know, it's not in anyone's interest. Quite frankly, it's definitely not in their interest. And yes, I'd admit that it's not in our interest. So whatever the case may be, you know what I mean? There are different ways of expressing your grievances. But I think that also there's also a lot of 2015 in this grievance. As part of that committee that has interacted with them and understood their grievances, we've actually found reasonable accommodation at all levels. So it's now for us to continue that process to a point where we actually get a reintegration. So yes, they have grievances which have been listed. You understand? Are those grievances beyond us being in a party, the PDP, as one family? I don't agree. But are those grievances being addressed? I think so. If the president of the federation spends 3 successive nights, you know what I mean, meeting with them, deliberating on those grievances, appreciating those grievances, and coming up with proposals on ways to address those grievances, then you see that there is good faith. But just remember that one of the grievances is that the president should not contest in 2015. How is that a grievance? No. Let's define them as politically related grievances.
The governor of Cross River State, Liel Imoke. Well, you can watch the full interview with the governor on Sunday on Politics Today at 8 p.m. Now, staying in Cross River State, elections were conducted today across the 18 local government areas for chairmanship and councillorship positions in the state. Well, the polls started late in most parts of the state as most electoral officers didn't arrive early. But most polling units visited by our crew showed few but peaceful voters. Now, some voters told them that the rumor of a postponement of the polls may have been responsible for the low turnout. Our correspondent, Seun Okinbaloye, who is in the state capital, Calabar, reports.
Bright day in the capital, Calabar, the anticipated day of the local council election in the state. Streets are not as bustling as usual. The election slated to commence at about 8 a.m. Several minutes after the hour, some of the centers are just booting, while officials are sorting themselves. At the 8 Miles Market in Calabar, it does not appear it's an election day. Residents are off to quick shopping, while traders take advantage too.
I dey sell fish. I'll go the election time never reach.
Some of the polling centers lack patronage, as low turnout characterizes the election across the state. At some polling units, the officials had a restful day.
There was some speculation that the election will not hold, but it was because of misinformation, or let me say ignorance.
It is an election that is trailed by several controversies. In the end, it did hold, but for a grassroots election as this, the objective is that the people's interest will be paramount at the minds of whosoever emerges winner. From Calabar, I'm Sheung Okimbaloye, reporting for Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, political parties in Nasarawa State are bracing up for the forthcoming local government election in the state. Now, the State Independent Electoral Commission has set December the 14th for the poll. Chairman of the state electoral body, Abdullahi Modibo, told journalists that the commission is set to conduct the elections after an out-of-court settlement was reached with the ousted elected council officials. Away from politics now, the National Council on Privatization has ratified the sale of 10 electricity distribution companies, including the Enugu Disco, for which the reserve bidder is challenging the sale in court. The preferred bidder, Interstate Consortium, had reportedly failed to meet the payment deadline, but still secured the deal, a development the reserved bidder, Eastern Electric, is kicking against. Interstate is linked to businessman Emeka Ofor, while Eastern Electric is linked to former Minister of Power, Bath Naji. State House correspondent Chukuma Onekusi reports.
Vice President Namade Sambo presiding over the meeting of the National Council on Privatization. Chairman of the Council's Technical Subcommittee on the sale process, Mr. Atedo Peter Side, who confirmed the eventual sales, however declined to give details of how the issue was resolved because it's now before the courts.
If indeed he has gone to court, which I'm told he has, then the matter is sub judice. So it's not something that we can sit down here now and start talking, as you know, because if the matter is in court, all I did was to announce the result of the NCP deliberation, which was that NCP ratified the sale of all the 10 discos in question for which payments were received. You are raising a question on one of the discos. On that particular disco, on account of a complaint, the reserve bidder has gone to court. Because he has gone to court, it's sub judice.
The announcement of the sale is coming at a time some Nigerians have expressed concern over the Enugu Disco. Mr. Osita Okechukwu, in a press conference, gave the Bureau for Public Enterprises an ultimatum to furnish Nigerian public on the sale in line with the Freedom of Information Act or face legal action.
One is at a loss how a company that failed woefully to pass the initial assessment litmus test of consistency test, got negative net present value, and to worsen matters, failed to pay up before the deadline of August 21st, 2013, could be handed over, the lifeline of enterprising and hardworking Nigerians.
Meanwhile, the bulk of the proceeds from the sales is said to be used for the payment of severance entitlements to about 49,000 workers of the Power Holding Company of Nigeria, PHCN, original owners of the discos and genkels. According to the National Council on Privatization, all payments are scheduled to be completed by September 27, while the formal handover of the companies to the new owners will be done in October. Chukuma Onrekusi, Channels Television News.
Well, the rowdy session and free-for-all that broke out in the House of Representatives recently has cast the 7th session of the House in a new light. From a house that prided itself as a house of the people for dialogue and debate, it's now being seen as a parliament that has the potential for fisticuffs. With some of the issues that led to the conflict still unresolved, our correspondent Larry Lasisi looks at the issues and the implications for the future of the Nigerian parliament.
After weeks of political bargaining, it appeared a resolution was in sight. But with a truce on Sunday, calm on Monday, it all fell apart on Tuesday. First with this rowdy session, and later an all-out free-for-all.
Definitely the